I've seen a few people from my community trying to start like, you know, their own booktube things, and you know, Nervith is doing it.
Boy! Did you just say trying?
Trying to start?
Right. I'm trying. That's what it is. What kind of an insult? Do you have any idea how many views I'm getting? How successful I am? How much money I'm making? Boy, I'm not just trying. I'm succeeding. I am powerful. I will take you down. But first, to fight you back, this was a great plan. I'm gonna go and review your favorite book of all time, which is The Old Man and the Sea, because you said that it was your favorite book.
This is the perfect book.
And I didn't think it was the most perfect book of all time, so I'm fighting you. I am. Sorry about no videos for like 3 weeks. Lots of problems. Studying, traveling, family, blah blah blah, stuff like that. But this is filmed like 9 years later on, so I'm just gonna do that. Let me tell y'all. So, The Old Man and the Sea, pretty good book. Short book, just picked it up off the library stand, because I'm like, hey, it's Ernest Hemingway, I gotta read some of this, because Daniel Green was like, yep, that's a good book. So I just went ahead and I picked it up, and I'm gonna read it. And I did read it. Now I'm gonna review it. Hello everybody, and today, we're gonna be doing another book review, where I'm gonna be reviewing The Old Man and the Sea. Ooh, brilliant lighting, because I'm standing up. Yeah, Old Man and the Sea. It's a baby book, it's 120 pages. And there's like nothing on every page, so it is in fact a baby book. And it's by Ernest Hemingway, one of the greatest writers of all time, apparently, allegedly, I don't really know. But yeah, apparently he's one of the greatest writers of all time. I didn't see that this was the greatest piece of writing of all time, so I'm not gonna go ahead and judge him based on that book. But I am gonna say, yeah, he could be one of my favorites. I do have a couple other of his books right here. Not a couple, just the For Whom the Bell Tolls. But that's good enough for me, because that's one of his most famous books, right? This book was so short, I could have honestly read this in one day, which I actually did. Probably didn't actually, because I read it into the next day because it was midnight. But this is a tiny book. I did read it in one day, and I'm very surprised with what I got out of it, because from what I read about it, what I talked about it to other people, they all mentioned that this was not the greatest book of all time. It's an okay book. It's not great for its size, but I went ahead and I took a leap anyway, and I found a lot of cool things about this. Now, first of all, I'm going to address one of the things on the back, which is very contrary to what a lot of people talk about in the book. What's in the book. So first thing I'm going to do is talk about what's on the back, because I found something interesting on here that I think is really important for what you want to think about when you're reading the book. And it talks a lot about how epic this book is and how epic this guy's journey is. Now, don't get me wrong. It was an epic book in a way, but I wouldn't call it an epic book in the way you would call Malazan an epic book. It's an epic book in a specific type of way. And that way would be the character development and the character hardships this guy faces. Because there's no monsters, there's no demons, there's no dragons, but there is a lot of fish. And his interaction with the fish is incredibly interesting because of how this guy's life is oriented, this guy's relationships with other people, and overall, the entire book comes down to this fish. And it's incredibly epic for what it is, because it's a fish, but this book is really epic just having that fish. What I really want to judge this book on is not exactly how great this book is on its own, because I doubt it's going to compare to anything this massive, but I have to compare it to its size, because this book couldn't have been told in a greater size, but there's not much epicness to put into such a book. And so you do have to consider the epicness ratio, the epicness in this book versus the epicness in Game of Thrones, because there's no way that there's going to be more epicness in this book than there is in Game of Thrones, but it's got a lot more per page than Game of Thrones does have. A lot of the epicness comes from the personal struggle of the old man in this book, and I think that that's done so masterfully, so great, that, you know, it's a real highlight for me, and I rated this book because of that. It was an incredibly good character struggle. You know, he's out on the sea, and a lot of this book is just inner monologue, this guy's thoughts, this guy's feelings, and his interaction with the world, and it's just a sea, so it's not really a giant world. And at the beginning and the end, it's got this interaction with this little kid, and so because of that, this book is completely predicated on the notion of relationships. And so you really get to the meat of the book, the themes of the book, when you talk about how this guy has a relationship with the ocean, with the world, with himself. Now, often one of my favorite parts of the book is the inner monologue, because I find out so much about them. I find out about their history, find out about, their being, and to me, that's one of the most interesting things about any book. So, of course, I thought that I would enjoy this because of the amount of inner monologues. The thing is, these kind of inner monologues are very different from the fantasy inner monologues that I'm so used to reading. And the reason that is because in a fantasy inner monologue, we get a lot more than just character. We get its interaction with the world in a larger scale than you would in anything that is low fantasy or anything that is down to earth, contemporary, anything like that. And so, it's very different to what I expected. However, this was incredibly good because of that. This guy's interaction with the world led to just heaps of just characterization on himself. We get to learn everything that's of importance within him. And one of the big things that I do want to talk about is how this guy embodies endurance. That's one of the biggest themes within the story, and I think that it's one of my favorite themes of all time, just because of how interesting endurance can be. You can put people in different situations, and in each situation, the idea of endurance is something that's completely different. And in this book, this is a book that had the freshest take on endurance I've ever thought of in my life, because it's not endurance for the sake of staying alive, although it kind of is. It's endurance on the sake of impressing others, of endurance on the sake of just, having pride and being able to complete his task. He's not completing it for himself, he's completing it for the kid that he loves at the beginning. And that's one of the coolest things about endurance that I like. It's so versatile, and it has such incredible limits. And all these books, they're great with endurance and stuff, but the problem is their endurance is just the same generally, because they're kind of enduring some physical hardship, and it's for the sake of usually either saving the lives of other people or saving the lives of themselves, things like that. But the problem is none of them have such a deep connection to the endurance theme that it comes close to this, because this destroyed that. I think that's where this book really, really shines, because this book embodies that theme so much, and there's not too much else to talk about the book. Characterization, I think that was done perfectly. We could not have known this character better. Plot, that is the one thing. It's an interesting plot, don't get me wrong. Wonderful. The endurance thing comes back around so many times. Interesting things do happen. But to me, I read fantasy books. I read a lot of fantasy books, and the plot is often what shines the most. Popping into this, we kind of had not a great plot compared to these, but I do think that this is a very good plot considering the length of the story. And I did read this in one night, and so this was quite an adventure, just sitting down and reading it. In general, I'm not a big fan of tiny books, but this is the only tiny book that I think I've ever enjoyed, other than, I would have to guess, Ocean at the End of the Lane. This one is much smaller than that though, and I've enjoyed it, not equal to it, but still really, really good. In terms of writing style, this guy does have a rep for speaking very, very easily, writing very easily, being very simple, anyone could understand. Although I don't agree with that in the modern day, in the past, I'm absolutely sure that would have been true. But still today, I was able to read it without any problem, and this book is, I don't know, like 50 years old maybe 80 years old, I don't even know. But it's way old, and it's very impressive how easily I could have read this, and I gotta praise him on that. But, as I do, I rate things in this channel, and so I gotta rate it right now. Rate it a good old 5 out of 5, and I want to tell you why, because this is one important thing that I did not mention so far, and that's for a reason. A 5 out of 5 means that it changed my life in some way. A 5 out of 5 means it's really, really good in one specific way that has made me want to reshape how I think, reshape how I do things. And in this situation, that reshaping was the inner monologues, because I have never been able to understand how authors did inner monologues well. They have an inner monologue, the character talks about themselves to the reader, and we just go on for like a page, and then we end it, and usually people figure that if this is going on longer than that, it would be boring. It would be an incredibly boring thing. However, in this book, the entirety of this book is an inner monologue, and so despite that, I found it very engaging. And the reason I found it that way is because it was such a revelation for the character to go through all of these things, slowly morphing his character. Slowly we're uncovering the things that he loves, the things that he enjoys, just stripping away until we get to the root of those things. And at the end, we're come to this very pure character that we understand everything about. And I find that that's incredibly beautiful. I love that so much. And that's just a big lesson for me to learn, because I've never understood how they do that. And to me, inner monologue is a very cool part of what I read, and that's really cool for me, so I'm very happy I learned that. If it wasn't for the inner monologues, or how much I love the inner monologues, I would have given this book a 4 out of 4, but it is going to be a 5 out of 5, because, why do I keep saying 4 out of 4? It is always going to be a 5 out of 5 in my books, because it is incredibly good. It's just such a good, interesting concept that has taught me quite a bit. And so that is going to be the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think of this standing up thing. I don't know why. I should probably sit down, but, you know, it's tough. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure to tell me what you thought of the book down in the description or comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye!